look at the manifesto of the MPP, clearly they define what exactly they want to do with the free SHS system. To the extent that they promise that they are going to redefine basic education to include secondary education. And we know that by the constitutional provision, once we say that something is basic, then it's free and compulsory, and it should be accessible to all. That is the definition that we have. So it means that we have opened the floodgate for everybody to have the same level playing field to access education, which in itself not wrong at all. But again, you live in a society where we are not all equal, and there are some people with capacity who can provide. So if we really introducing a program that relies on social intervention, then clearly we have to define the target and see those who really need of those services so that we target them. And then those who can provide the services, we make it so friendly for them to also provide it. So on that basis, I would tend to agree with his position. But again, this is where most of the things that we do in this country ride on political manifestos. So I don't know how that is going to fit into the whole agenda of doing that. So I would say that the whole free SHS scheme must be looked at again, because the issue that we are seeing today are going to multiply in the future. So we need to have a system that we can all live on and say that, yes, this is what exactly we want. Because first of all, what the manifesto is saying is different from the announcement that was made by the Minister of Education, that the scheme that they are bringing is scholarship. And once you say scholarship, then you deviate from what has been provided for in the manifesto. And here is a case that the Minister of Finance is also proposing this scheme, which I tend to believe with him, because that has been our position for some time now, that you cannot roll out a social intervention program on a whole scale. You need to define it and target the real people that need those services. So I think that they have to go back to the drawing board, look at how to restructure the whole free SHS system, so that we need to be consistent with the flow of the policy arrangement, right from what they have promised in the manifesto, what is on the ground, and what needs to be done. So once we are able to do all this evaluation, then we can come to a certain conclusion that this is the way we want to go. That is why I believe that when we introduce any policy which is socially targeting people, then we need to also give room to do piloting of that policy to see how best we can live to that policy. Once we are able to define that, then we will have a rollout of the policy. For instance, you look at the demand. Once any social intervention program is also like just a supply and demand. So because a lot of people are suffering, you need to also leverage that. So if you have that, then you need to also target those people. For instance, industry is saying that they've not had enough manpower to feed into the kind of work that they do because of the way we have designed our educational system, which of course means that then it means that we need to redefine what exactly we want to do. So I was even expecting that government from the beginning will focus on technical and vocational skills, because that is what industry say that they need, so that they can make that aspect free and compulsory, so that we shift people who are going into the normal having secondary education to go into the technical and vocational skills, so that we can get the manpower to feed our industry, create an avenue where people with technical and vocational skills can still have their degree, can still have their master, and even have PhD in technical education. So that is the way to go. Germany has tried it, Singapore has done it, Malaysia has done it. So I think that we have a lot of examples around us that we can look on and say that this is the way that we want to go. So I would say that I fully support the position of the finance minister. We all have to go back to the drawing board and then see what we can do to support our children in a way that everybody will benefit.
Now, quickly, on this recent announcement of the new double-track system for SHS. Now, you are a child rights activist, so I want to ask this based on the Constitution's insistence that everything we do, we must first consider the best interest of the child. So tell me, double-track system, is it in the best interest of the child?
Yeah, well, the best interest of the child in this case will be to what extent have we made this policy available to them to understand, so that it doesn't create any fear or panic in them. But we just got to know of this policy a few days ago when children are going to be in school. So clearly it's going to create some kind of panic situation in them. And as to whether they are going to have the time to even wait for the semester, because once you are a child and your colleague that you are in school with is going to school and you're at home, it creates all kinds of issues and all that. So government must must make this document public and then create a lot of education around it, and then see how best society would accept it. We were expecting that consultation will go on for this, but it didn't go the way we wanted it. But whichever way it is, we think that with the current situation, it will be very difficult for government to say that they want to do a one rollout of all or over 180,000 children who have passed the BEC. So let's look at it as a measure to address the current situation. But moving forward, we think that government should develop a plan as to how they are going to deal with the infrastructure issues in our secondary schools. Because if you look at the Anamoy's committee report, it gave a clear indication that most of the traditional secondary schools that we have, they have lands and they have facilities that we can develop to accommodate a number of children in our secondary schools. So government should go back to that report, look at some of the recommendations, and see how we can develop the lands that we have with facilities so that we can have one-time enrollment. That is what our children are used to. That is what the system knows. So if they are bringing a new thing, we think that there should be more education. But the plan is also needed so that we will know exactly where we are heading to as a nation.
So in definitive terms, you would say that the way this new system is being rolled out is not in the best interest of the child?
Of course, because there are a lot of uncertainties around it. Even as policymakers, we don't know whether it is a pilot thing that government want to do, and if it succeeds, government will roll it out. Or we don't even know whether it's an historic measure that government is taking to ensure that it develop the facilities, because we've not had any announcement on the long-term plan as to how government is going to deal with the facilities in secondary schools and all that. So everything is hanging, and we need to ensure that things run smoothly and policies are coherent and consistent in terms of the way we want to approach things in this country.
That's bright. Appiah right there also commenting on this and saying this is not in the best interest of the child, the one who is at the center of this. Remember that we're journalists, we're asking questions, we're not the ones at the center of it. But we're also parents, so this also concerns us. Their parents are stakeholders, but they are children who are at the center, and teachers and heads of institutions as well. We encourage you to send us questions. This one says, not questions really, but comments. If you have questions, yes, we'll read the questions. This one says, I wish you guys were around to receive an award from me. The questions you're asking, Mr. Amar, are all relevant ones, and listen to how he's stammering to answer. The system is going to reduce school into a joke. It's Seidu from Sampa in BSN in this. Let's activate the phone line so you can all have your say on this. So call us 0302-211-6910, 0302-211-69102. But let's hear from Dr. Yao Osei Educhum, Deputy Education Minister in charge of basic and secondary education on this matter.
And I think you said finance minister, but I also read a statement and he chose his words very carefully. He said maybe it's the time for us to have a conversation, and it's a good idea to have a conversation. So he's just saying that bring out your ideas, let's discuss. It may be a good thing to do. And of course, I won't fault him for making such a statement. I would rather applaud him for making a statement that says, we cherish your opinions, bring your ideas out, let's talk.
So what he's saying, but you are not looking at the substance of the idea that maybe going forward, we should review this module and allow people who want to support this program to do so.
If you're talking about voluntary contribution, the finance minister himself talked about it, that we have to set up a voluntary education fund. So if that is what you mean, all that we are saying is this. In some countries, it took them 10 to 15 years. In some states, California, it took them 15 years before they built more. They did a massive construction, and they were able, they actually used eminent domain, the compulsory acquisition, to pull down homes so that they can put up schools. And as a result of that, a number of the schools reverted to single track. So different countries have different approaches. From where we sit, we believe that GET Fund is able to do the infrastructure development that it plans doing. A number of the schools will revert single track in the next few years. So people are throwing around 5 to 7 years as a good benchmark and time frame, I believe it can be done. But we also have to understand that GetFund has begun and a major infrastructure development. And if they are able to do that, we may even be able to do it faster.
So within 5 to 7 years, we should expect to revert to the single track system.
That may be my personal opinion, but I think it's worth something, and I believe we can get there.
Okay, this is a bit worrying for me. That's the Deputy Minister of Education.
Offering his personal opinion.
Exactly.
Personal opinion.
Not too long ago, we also had the Finance Minister also share his personal opinion on this. Let's listen to a few people who are joining us via phone. Eric Amoa is in Kumasi. Eric, you first. We'll come to Suleimana after Eric. So, Eric, let's hear you. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes.
Madam, considering the ongoing discussion, I just want to submit that it is about time we consider the 3-year, 4-year program at the same time. I have categorized the students into fast learning students and then slow learners. And that I'm suggesting that I've done the calculation in terms of contact hours and the details of which I wanted to meet with Deputy Minister of Information yesterday, but at the policy summit. Unfortunately, that could not allow me to meet with him. I've done the details on contact hours, of which we shall be able to consider both 3-year program and 4-year program running at the same time. The 3-year will be for the fast learners, and then the 4-year will be for the slow learners. And I've done the calculation in terms of contact hours, and it is feasible for the fast learners to go ahead and do a complete full term, 14 weeks, with increased contact hours from 2 to 4 o'clock. That's from 8 to 4 o'clock. Contact hours. And then the slow learners will come later after the fast learners have left the system after 14 weeks to come also do about 12 weeks or 11 weeks. I have the details of which I will be able to present to the minister if he will give me the opportunity.
So how do you intend doing that? How do you intend
fast learners and slow learners?
Yes. What I'm considering is that, we are battling with whether to go for 3-year or 4-year and all that. And
Eric,
I believe this is the time we can consider that using their DHS results. Based on their results, we can categorize them into fast learning students, those who get the right passes. They will be considered first.
All right.
And then they will go for the first semester. And then we will later take time to place the second batch of students.
We have to speak to Suleimana.
We consider, based on their results, consider as slow learners. And they will have the opportunity to go for a 4-year program. But because they will not have lengthy concentration at the level, they will not have 14 weeks. They will do 12 weeks. And in all, we can have 52 weeks in the system in 1 year. And it will go for both. It's only that we need to sit down and then give the details. I can give the details. I mean, I can come down to Accra to give the details to the minister for consideration.
Okay, Eric, we have to move on and speak to Suleimana Fatau in Tamale. Eric, thank you very much. You can call us back and give us your details so that we can interrogate the things that you're saying a lot more. Suleimana Fatau, we thank you for holding. Let's hear you.
Yeah, good morning to you and your co-panel, Mababi, and then and the rest.
Kojo and Roland.
Kojo,
yes,
and then my good friend there. Yeah, first of all, I must also thank those who are been able to listen to this program this morning. You see, nowadays it's high time we depoliticize certain things in terms of education. For me, I see all this thing happening to our education at this time being politicized so much. Every government want to come in and say, I was the one who introduced this or who do these things. Sometimes they don't usually take our people or those who are involved into consideration.
Suleimana,
for instance,
Suleimana, please hear me.
Yes.
Say exactly how you think it's being politicized so we can speak to others.
Yes, thank you very much. This is because, you see, for instance, what we're having, instead of the government to try as much as possible to go in there, do a lot of research to find out what is the normal causes of our students. Maybe they find out that what are some of the things that usually bring the failure of the students. Maybe, for instance, this year, about 190 students were not able to pass the exams. Instead of him to go direct into the ground and make his research and come out with appropriate solutions so that we can tackle this problem holistically. But rather, they try to everything do certain things, but not taking other people into consideration. Maybe product
I think your point has been made. We get you. Thank you. Let's speak to Rashid in Wa. Good morning, Rashid.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, Rashid, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm just Rashid wishing you from Wa.
Okay.
Many thanks for the good job that you guys are doing out there. And that education is the best legacy one could give to. And then some of these implications of initiatives we always want to come with, we should always take a critical and then do an investigation properly, probe into it, the shortfalls of it before we introduce it. Now, we are telling the goalposts. We thought it was that this would be a very good policy. But understanding the whole thing, it's like, our children are going to suffer a lot. I understand that we have slow learners. How can you teach someone and the person go and sits for 3 years and then by 3 months and come and write the exams back? What are they telling us? At the end of the day, the previous failures that we're recording in our various senior high schools is going to be repeating, recurring time after time. So we have to be extra vigilant about some of these things. Education is something that we don't need to be joking with, playing politics with. No. People were saying free senior high school should be something that will be done in future. It's a progressive thing. Another school of thought were saying it is a done deal and should be done now. Now it is being introduced. Look at the challenges that students are facing. Imagine, where are we going as a people? We have to be extra meticulous about some of these things. Let them play politics. Let them play the ostrich. Let's move ahead and then look at it. If this policy cannot help us, we will draw it and then move forward. It's not, how can you say something free, at the end of the day, it will go in and have a diverse effect on us.
Your point is well made. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's Rashid from One. This is where we have to end the phone calls. There are other messages, and people are asking questions that, honestly, we cannot answer. Somebody's asking about the double tracking and the implications. Hopefully, Kojo, you'll be able to grab the minister one of these days.
Yeah, I'm working on it. But we really wish we could answer these questions because free SHS is something that is meant to benefit all of us. It's such an important initiative. Those people who are who would never have been able to send their children to school if this hadn't happened are so grateful for it. So if it doesn't become sustainable, so many people will be affected. But I am concerned that we are not seeing enough evidence that this has been thought through. We're not seeing enough evidence. In fact, we're seeing far too much evidence that it hasn't been thought through. For example, you heard the Deputy Minister just say, in his opinion, it might be over in 7 years. It might be over. This is a very precise, this is precision planning. You should know from now how much money you need to raise in order to build how many schools or how many extensions to the existing schools, to create how many seats, so that from 7 years from now, however many people are coming through the system will all be accommodated in one stream. So you can then go back to that stream. Now, when you go back, are you going to back to the 3-term system, or are you going to keep the semester system? Who is answering that question? And you see, the biggest piece of evidence that this has not been planned is the fact that the NPP decided long before they became a government that they were going to implement this free SHS system. All it took was for somebody to take a calculator and figure out how many students will come through each year, how many seats will be required, and whether or not by the second, because this is only the second cohort, by the second cohort, whether indeed we would have enough facilities to accommodate them. Nobody did that. And so now we have this emergency situation we're trying to solve. It worries me.
The money man's
stay with us. When we come back, we'll share with you this year's Habitat Fair, what to expect. But of course, Becky Bex is also coming up with some show businesses brought to us courtesy Awake Purified Water. Stay with us.